The battlefield was chaos, smoke and fire swirling thick over the scorched earth, the screams of wounded soldiers echoing in every direction, and the sharp crack of gunfire cutting through the air. The Navy medic moved swiftly, weaving between fallen comrades and debris, his eyes scanning every shadow, every movement searching for anyone in need. His hands were steady, his mind focused, yet beneath the training, a spark of fear burned lightly in his stomach. The wind carried the acrid smell of gunpowder, and blood mingling with sweat and dust. He ducked behind a low wall, applying pressure to a soldier whose leg was mangled. But as he finished, he caught a movement to his left. A figure slumped against a crumbling wall, half hidden by smoke and rubble, caught his attention. He hesitated for a moment, assessing the severity of her injuries from a distance instinct, battling disbelief as he took in the scene. Each step he took felt heavier, the world narrowing around him, the chaos fading until all he could see was her. The closer he got, the more familiar. The emblem on her uniform became engraved in his memory, a symbol that made his heart skip a beat. The whispers of other soldiers floated through the haze, some noticing his hesitation, others too focused on survival to see anything unusual. The medic knelt beside her, his hands hovering, unsure if he should touch, yet compelled by duty and the shock of recognition. She was pale, her uniform soaked with blood, her breathing shallow and irregular. The wind shifted, carrying the distant echoes of battle. Yet in that moment, all sound seemed to fade around them. He pressed a hand to her chest, checking for life, feeling the faint thump of a pulse beneath his fingers. It was weak, but present. The emblem caught the sunlight breaking through smoke, reflecting off blood, a stark reminder of who she was and the bond they had shared. He swallowed hard, forcing his training to take over even as his mind raced with disbelief. Memories of past missions, the night spent planning impossible operations, and the unspoken trust formed over years flooded his mind. But now all that mattered was keeping her alive. The crowd of soldiers around them continued to fight, move and call out, oblivious to the emotional storm building inside him. He applied pressure to the wounds, methodically checking for hidden injuries. His hands were steady despite the internal storm of recognition and fear. Each movement deliberate, each second a delicate balance between life and death. She moaned softly, a faint sound that made him flinch, yet focus harder, whispering reassurances that he barely believed. The smoke shifted briefly, revealing glimpses of her blood-stained face, her eyes flickering with life and recognition. She tried to speak, but the words were lost in the roar of explosions. The emblem on her uniform glinted in the smoke and dust, catching his attention again, forcing a lump in his throat. He could see the twitch of her fingers and the uneven rise of her chest, indicating how fragile her state was. The battlefield raged around them, bullets whistling and shells exploding, but the world had shrunk to the two of them alone. He moved swiftly, checking for hidden injuries, the emblem catching glints of sunlight, a reminder of their shared history and the trust they had built. The watchers around them held their breath, the tension thick every second, stretching into eternity, leaving everyone wondering if she could survive long enough for extraction. The medic adjusted her position, supporting her head and neck, his hands steady despite adrenaline surging. Each micro-movement mattered, every adjustment a life tethered to his skill and awareness. The subtle twitch in her eyelid, the faint flutter of her pulse kept him focused and alert. The battlefield roared around them, yet for the medic time seemed suspended, every heartbeat echoing the suspense, the uncertainty pressing down heavier than smoke and chaos. The emblem glinted again, a reminder of resilience and courage. He applied bandages, stabilized bleeding, monitored pulse, whispered coaxing words, urging her to stay conscious, every word, a lifeline threading her to life. The wind shifted again, carrying smoke dust masking sounds yet sharpening his awareness. He mentally prepared for extraction, calculating hazards, debris, enemy movement, every movement critical, the suspense pressing heavier than the roar of battle. Each second stretched taut, the thought of one misstep, one wrong move pressing, down like a weight that could crush them both. He shifted her carefully, supporting her weight muscles coiled ready to react instantly to any threat. The faint moan from her lips reminded him she was alive, yet dangerously fragile. He whispered again, urging her to fight, to remain conscious, each syllable deliberate as he applied another layer of pressure-checking wounds, adjusting position. The emblem glinted one more time, a beacon of resilience and trust, pushing him forward as the suspense built heavier than the gunfire, smoke and chaos leaving him and every watcher questioning if they would survive the next moment, the next step, and what awaited them beyond the devastation. The medic pressed on, carefully supporting her fragile body. Every muscle coiled as he moved through the war-torn terrain debris, smoke and dust swirling around them, bullets whistling dangerously close and explosions shaking the ground, yet his focus remained entirely on her survival. His breath came in shallow, bursts every sense heightened to detect threats, each heartbeat echoing the suspense pressing down heavy on his chest. The emblem on her uniform caught intermittent sunlight reflecting off blood and grime, a reminder of who she was and the bond. That demanded he protect her. His mind raced memories of past missions, the nights spent planning impossible operations, the laughter, the silent understanding, and the unspoken trust, flooding his thoughts now irrelevant compared to the urgent need. To keep her alive, every step forward was calculated yet loaded with risk. Each pulse of her heart beneath his hands, every shallow breath she drew, reminded him of the stakes, the urgency of survival, the fragility of life around them. He whispered, softly coaxing her to remain conscious, his words cutting through the chaos, carrying reassurance and command intertwined. Her eyes flickered faintly, a nod, acknowledging him, signaling a fragile thread of trust, connecting them across the battlefield. The ground beneath them was treacherous, littered with debris, fallen comrades, and hidden hazards, forcing constant adjustments. Yet he pressed forward, muscles, taut eyes scanning for danger, every step measured. Bullets whistled past, forcing him to duck slightly and shift her body, shielding her as best he could, while predicting enemy movement and possible ambushes. The emblem on her uniform glimmered again, a symbol of resilience and courage that kept him moving, pushing through exhaustion and fear. The distant shouts of soldiers faded to background noise as his mind narrowed entirely to the two of them alone. Each second stretched taut, the suspense building with every motion, as he realized how close she was to collapse, how fragile life could be and how quickly death could strike. His hands moved expertly, pressing bleeding areas, checking for hidden injuries, adjusting her position, supporting head, neck, and back, every movement precise yet urgent. She moaned softly, a faint sound that made his chest tighten, yet reminded him she was alive and fighting. He whispered again, urging her to fight to remain conscious, each word deliberate, a lifeline, threading her to life. The battlefield raged around them, explosions and gunfire, echoing in every direction. Yet time seemed suspended, muscles straining nerves, coiled every movement, critical every decision fraught with peril. He adjusted her position slightly, monitoring vitals, the subtle twitch of her pulse, the faint flicker of her eyelids, a reminder of life still present and fragile. The emblem shone again in shifting light, reminding him of courage, resilience, and the bond that demanded he keep her alive. He scanned constantly for extraction points, safe paths, hazards, yet to emerge, the suspense mounting with every step, the thought of one misstep pressing heavily on him. The wind shifted, carrying smoke and dust masking sounds, yet sharpening senses, muscles burning yet coiled, ready to react instantly to any new threat. His hands moved tirelessly, applying bandages, checking bleeding, adjusting her body, supporting her head, neck, and back, each action a critical measure of survival. The faint moan escaped her lips, a reminder she clung to life, yet dangerously weak. Her eyes flickered recognition and trust, and it gave him the tiniest spark of hope. Yet the suspense pressed heavier than ever. The crowd of soldiers moved cautiously around them, aware of struggle, yet unaware of the emotional storm gripping. The medic, each second stretched endlessly the battlefield, indifferent, yet the tension pressing down heavier than smoke and gunfire. Each step measured, each movement deliberate yet fraught with danger. He whispered, coaxing her to remain conscious. Every word a fragile lifeline. Her pulse fluttered beneath his fingers, faint yet present, a sign of fragile endurance and a thread of hope. The debris shifted underfoot, forcing constant vigilance, yet he pressed forward, scanning every angle for threats. The emblem glimmered again, reflecting sunlight through smoke and dust, a stark reminder of courage, resilience, and trust. He glanced briefly at her pale, streaked blood face, the faint flicker of recognition in her eyes, strengthening his resolve. The battlefield raged, indifferent every second, critical, every motion, a balance between survival and disaster. His suspense pressed heavier with every passing moment as they moved cautiously toward extraction, every heartbeat suspended, every watcher, wondering if they could survive the next step, the next second, and what awaited beyond the edge of the battlefield. The medic pressed forward, every muscle coiled, every sense heightened. As he carried her through the battlefield, smoke and dust swirled thick around them, gunfire cracked sharply, and explosions shook the ground, yet his focus remained entirely on keeping her alive. Each step was deliberate, calculated, cautious, yet urgent. The weight of her body pressing against him, forcing constant adjustments. Every pulse of her heart beneath his hands, every shallow breath she drew, reminded him how fragile life was and how every second could be their last. He whispered, softly, coaxing her to remain conscious, his voice cutting through the chaos, the words deliberate, a lifeline threading her to life. Her eyelids fluttered. She blinked faintly, acknowledging him, a fragile signal of trust and recognition that strengthened his resolve. The ground beneath them was uneven, littered with rubble-fallen soldiers and debris, forcing every step to be precise and deliberate. Bullets whistled past, forcing him to duck slightly and shift her body, shielding her as best he could while scanning, constantly for threats and predicting enemy movements. The emblem on her uniform caught intermittent sunlight, reflecting off the blood and dust, a stark reminder of courage and resilience, and the unspoken promise that he would protect her. His muscles burned, his arms ached, his back strained, yet he moved tirelessly, adjusting bandages, checking for hidden wounds, monitoring vitals, every movement critical and every decision fraught with peril. The battlefield raged around them, explosions and gunfire, echoing endlessly. Yet time seemed suspended for the medic and the wounded woman alone in that pocket of chaos. The faint moan she emitted reminded him she clung to life, yet dangerously weak. He whispered again, urging her to fight, to remain conscious, each syllable a tether holding her to the world. The crowd of soldiers moved cautiously around them, some engaged in firefights, others tending to their own wounded, unaware of the emotional storm gripping the medic. Each second stretched taut, though, suspense pressing heavier than smoke and chaos. The wind shifted, carrying dust and gunpowder masking sounds, yet sharpening his awareness. Muscles coiled, ready to react instantly to any threat. His hands moved tirelessly, pressing bleeding areas, adjusting. Her position supporting her head, neck, and back, each action deliberate, precise, yet urgent. She gasped softly, a faint sound that made his chest tighten, yet reminded him she was alive and still fighting. The emblem glimmered again in the shifting. Light, a reminder of resilience, courage, and the bond that demanded he keep her alive. Every movement, critical, every step, a calculation of survival, the suspense pressing down heavier with each second. The battlefield seemed endless, yet his focus narrowed entirely to the two of them alone. He shifted her slightly, monitoring vitals, checking pulse, watching eyelids flicker and twitch, every small movement a sign of life and endurance. The whispers of other soldiers floated faintly through the smoke, a background hum as he navigated debris and threats, the suspense building with every step, the thought that one misstep could cost them both, pressing down like a weight on his chest. He whispered again, softly, coaxing her to remain conscious, every word deliberate, a lifeline threading her to life. Her pulse fluttered faint beneath his fingers, a reminder that she was still clinging to existence, yet dangerously weak. The ground shifted underfoot, forcing constant vigilance, yet he pressed. On scanning every angle for hazards, the emblem catching glints of sunlight again, a symbol of courage and survival. He glanced briefly at her pale, streaked face, blood-smeared, yet eyes flickering recognition and trust, strengthening his resolve. The battlefield raged in different explosions and bullets slicing the air, yet the world had shrunk to them alone. Every movement critical, every second loaded with tension, the suspense pressing heavier with each passing heartbeat. He adjusted her position, supporting head and neck, checking hidden injuries, every fiber of his being alert to the slightest twitch or breath. She moaned softly, a faint sound that reminded him how fragile her hold on life was, yet also confirmed her determination to survive. He whispered again, urging her to fight each word, a tether connecting her to the world. The debris shifted beneath them, forcing careful placement of every foot and adjustment of her body. Yet he pressed on, muscles, straining eyes, scanning constantly. The emblem shone through blood and dust, glinting, a reminder of courage, resilience, and trust. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down heavier than smoke and chaos, knowing every second mattered, every movement could decide life or death. The suspense mounted with each step, the thought of what awaited them beyond the next corner pressing on every nerve and every heartbeat, leaving watchers and even him questioning if they could survive the next step, the next second, and reach the extraction point alive. The medic moved forward, muscles taut, every sense alert as he carried her through the war-torn battlefield. Smoke and dust swirled around them, the acrid smell of gunpowder filling his lungs and stinging his eyes. Explosions shook the ground, bullets whistling past his head, yet he remained focused entirely on keeping her alive. Every step was deliberate, calculated, precise, yet urgent. The weight of her body pressing against him, forcing constant adjustments. Each pulse of her heart beneath his hands, every shallow breath reminded him how close she was to collapse and how fragile life could be. He whispered softly, coaxing her to remain conscious, his voice carrying reassurance and command intertwined. Her eyelids fluttered. She blinked faintly, acknowledging him, a fragile signal of trust and recognition that strengthened his resolve. The ground beneath them was uneven, littered with debris, fallen soldiers, and rubble forcing every step to be precise. The battlefield raged around them, explosions and gunfire echoing endlessly, yet time seemed suspended in the small space of their struggle. The faint moan she emitted reminded him she clung to life, yet dangerously weak. He pressed on, whispering again, urging her to fight, every word deliberate, a lifeline threading her to existence. The emblem on her uniform caught the intermittent sunlight, reflecting off blood and grime, a stark symbol of resilience, courage, and the bond that demanded he protect her. His muscles burned, his back ached, yet he moved tirelessly, adjusting bandages, checking for hidden wounds, monitoring vitals, supporting head, neck, and back, every action critical and precise. Each small movement could determine life or death, the suspense pressing heavier with every second. The whispers of other soldiers floated faintly through the smoke, a background hum as he navigated hazards, debris, and enemy positions, the suspense building as each step brought them closer to extraction, yet closer to potential disaster. The wind shifted, carrying dust and smoke-masking sounds, but sharpening his awareness muscles coiled, ready to react instantly to any new threat. She gasped faintly, a soft sound that made his chest tighten, yet reminded him she was alive and still fighting. He whispered, coaxing her to remain conscious, every word deliberate, a thread holding her to the world. The debris shifted underfoot, forcing constant vigilance. Yet he pressed on, scanning every angle for hazards and threats. The emblem glimmered again, catching sunlight through the haze, a reminder of courage, resilience, and the unspoken promise to protect her. He glanced briefly at her pale, streaked face, blood-smeared yet eyes flickering recognition and trust, strengthening his resolve. The battlefield raged in different explosions and gunfire slicing the air, yet for him the world had shrunk to the two of them alone. Every movement critical, every second laden with tension, the suspense pressing heavier. With each passing heartbeat, he adjusted her position, supporting head and neck, checking hidden injuries, every fiber alert to the slightest twitch of her pulse or eyelid. She moaned softly, a faint sound that reminded him how fragile her hold on. Life was yet confirmed her determination to survive. He whispered again, urging her to fight, each word a tether connecting her to the world. The ground shifted beneath them, forcing careful placement of every foot and adjustment of her body. Yet he pressed forward, muscles straining, eyes scanning constantly. The emblem shone through blood and dust, glinting, a reminder of courage, resilience, and trust. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down heavier than smoke and chaos, knowing every second mattered, every movement could decide life or death. The suspense mounted with each step, the thought of what awaited them beyond the next corner pressing on every nerve, every heartbeat, leaving watchers and even him questioning if they could survive the next step, the next second, the next explosion. The battlefield seemed endless, yet he focused on each small triumph, each stable step, each shallow breath. Her pulse fluttered faint beneath his fingers, every slight movement, a thread of hope. The whispers of distant soldiers grew faint as he moved through the chaos, muscles coiled ready to react instantly to any threat. Her eyes flickered recognition and gratitude, a fragile acknowledgement that she trusted him to keep moving. The emblem caught the sunlight one final time, a stark symbol of resilience and courage pressing him forward, the suspense building heavier than the roar of battle, the smoke and the gunfire leaving every heartbeat suspended, every watcher questioning if they could survive the final steps to safety. The medic pushed forward, muscles burning, eyes stinging bullets, whistling explosions, shaking the ground. Yet he held her tightly, her pulse fluttering weakly, the emblem glinting, hope, survival, hanging by a thread, suspense pressing heavier with every heartbeat.